Good afternoon. This talk is supposed to be about how PowerCLI is used to shut down a StarWind 2-node cluster when you have a power outage. It is, and it's not. So first, let's talk about StarWind. It should be noted that although this session description stated that it's a critical flaw, that the workaround is now formally documented via a white paper that StarWind has published. You can email support@starwind.com for the official document, or if you want to know my specific tweaks that we've come up with for their white paper, you can email me at starwindshutdown@gmail.com or reach out to me on Twitter at GSXESX. For those of you here in the audience today, I'd be happy to meet with you individually after the talk concludes to discuss the specifics of the fix, or for those of you watching this remotely, please feel free to reach out directly. I'd like to add that myself nor my employer is receiving any benefits from StarWind for giving this talk. I'm just trying to share what I've learned with the community. Now for the remaining time. I think it's important to tell the story of how I got here, how we came up with the fix, and why I'm speaking to you now. I don't have much of a slide deck, so bear with me. If I had a chance to retitle the session, I'd call it StarWind and Superheroes. Let me explain. I'm going to take a big rewind. We're going to go back to 2002. I was fresh out of college, and I had moved back home to chase a girl, of all things. I had no job prospects, and an opening just happened to come up at a company whose controller lived down the street from my parents. The controller and my mom were friends. They had the opening for an IT project coordinator. I didn't know what that really meant, nor what I would be doing, but I applied anyway. Somehow I got the job. Fast forward a couple of years, and this particular retailer is growing. I hear about this thing called VMware. I don't know what it was, but I installed GSX on an old box that was laying around. Thought it was pretty neat. I ended up installing ESX on bare metal and thought it was really neat, and eventually did vMotion, and I had what Amy Lewis would call or refer to as, and as many of you have stated, a software-defining moment. I knew this was really something special, software that I knew I was going to be using for a real long time. So let's fast forward a little bit more. I've been promoted to an IT director with staff, and the retailer is growing yet again. They had an ERP app that needed move off of dumb terminals to Win32. The new Win32 app didn't play with Citrix, and it wouldn't run on a terminal server. We need to deploy hundreds of new floor terminals, and I thought there was going to be a better way than physical desktops. Did a Google search. Somehow stumbled on VDI and started reading the early blogs of people like Scott Lowe, Duncan Epping, Cormac Hogan, and Brian Madden. And I thought, wonder if someone's using this locally. So I did a Google search. I found the Western PA vMug users group. I drove 2 hours from my home for the first meeting. I met guys like Eric Pond. I did my first presentation and eventually get asked to sit on the steering committee. I really enjoyed it. Then the financial crisis hit. And for a lot of different reasons, IT burnout that I didn't handle properly, being one of them, I left the retailer and switched career focuses. Let's skip several chapters ahead. I'm doing some virtualization work, not really happy with what I'm doing. I leave the company number 2 to work for a small manufacturer in central Pennsylvania to be their IT director. I want to get back into the virtualization space. So I start going to vMug meetings again. And my first vMug meeting in Pittsburgh, I sit down, and a gentleman by the name of Gabe Mentz comes over to me, who I've never met before, and he introduces himself. And he asks me, am I on Twitter, or do I blog? Never heard of Twitter at that point. Never had done any type of blogging, but it sparked my interest enough to keep me looking into it and to sign up for a Twitter account, which I encourage all of you to do if you don't have one to begin with. I went to the Pittsburgh UserCon that following year. I met Ariel Sanchez. Found more Twitter followers, found more relevant information. Then applied for vMug leadership for Central Pennsylvania, after which I was awarded the expert status and found out about this particular event. Via that, I was able to have my pass for this event compensated. And because we were limited with funding in getting here, several VCDXs, which I thought was fairly incredible, reached out and even offered hotel rooms and to pay for my meals. The whole overall event has been incredible. On Sunday, I was introduced to Scott Lowe, who's multiple guys I've read and owned, and I met fellow vMug leaders. Monday, I literally bumped into Duncan Epping. Tuesday, I worked the vMug booth and talked about vMug Advantage. I got to meet admins from all over the globe. I also got to meet and shake hands with Brian Madden. And then Wednesday, as I was leaving the Veeam booth, I just happened to literally back into the man that's responsible for the 486 architecture and has a large part of why we're all here today, Pat Gelsinger. So I started to understand why it was that Gabe and Ariel do what they do. And another fact, as I was leaving the show yesterday, I met a fellow admin that didn't know Twitter, didn't have that resource under his belt. So I sat down and I introduced him to what Twitter was. Got to have him sign up for an account and tweeted out a link just to introduce him like Gabe and Ariel had done for me. So what does all of this mean? So we're here today surrounded by people in the audience that may not necessarily even want to know about StarWind, but they're just here to support me and who I am. So if you're here about StarWind, I'd be happy to track directly with you at the conclusion of this talk and share my experience with the software package and anything that I could do to help you. If you're watching online and have StarWind questions, please contact me via email at starwindshutdown@gmail.com or on Twitter, again, at GSXESX. But let's go back to that meeting. The key takeaways that I've come up with out of this event, to make a bad quote from a great movie, is be excellent to one another. And then to quote Pat, is do a great job today and build the skills you want for the job tomorrow. And the focus of the event has always been, or excuse me, one of the vMug themes this week was be a superhero. Well, in my opinion, superheroes certainly don't wear capes or have X-ray vision. They're the other everyday people all around us at every level that do the right thing when it's easier to choose the actions of the bad guy. Thank you.